Brand new section, Unit 7. First thing we're going to do is something that's pretty challenging, so I hope you're ready to concentrate. It's called completing the square. All right, little interruption by the dogs there. Sorry about that. So we're going to get started with a little reminder. If you remember my little poem that I came up with, bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. So you get x is plus or minus 7. If I didn't tell you that, some of you might remember the lessons from the previous unit towards the end of Unit 6. Somebody might foil this, and that's not wrong. It's just not the easiest way to do these. That's why I showed you this. So when you get it to here, it's bada boom, bada bang, do the right thing. So I get x minus 3 equals plus or minus. I'm going to go ahead and break that down to square root of 4, square root of 2, plus or minus 2 square root of 2. And then I add 3, and I add 3, and here we go. X is 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Done. Here's some more practice on that same technique. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. So I get 1/2 t minus 12 equals, I'm going to break that down to the 25 and 2. You guys should be getting real good at that. Plus or minus 5 square root of 2. Add 12, add 12. So I get 1/2 t equals 12 plus or minus 5 square root of 2. Now to get rid of that 1/2, I got to multiply this side by 2, but I got to multiply that side by 2. So this would cancel. I'd get t equals, bounce, bounce, 24 plus or minus 10 square root of 2. And this one is just going to throw an extra curveball at you. Do you go bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing right now, or should we multiply both sides by 2? I say we multiply both sides by 2. We don't want to deal with fractions if you don't want to. And I don't want to. So x minus 3 squared equals negative 12. Here we go. Bada boom, bada bing. Look at, we got a square root of a negative. Here's where your lessons from previous days are going to come to your benefit. X minus 3 equals plus or minus, remember the steps, take the I out first, then deal with what's left. So this would be 2i square root of 3. Now we're going to add 3 to both sides. So we get x is 3 plus or minus 2i square root of 3. So there's our answers for the first 3. All right, guess what? These last 3 problems have very, very little to do with completing the square. And so if you watch the pre-lesson, which you should, that's an expectation, this next step will make a lot of sense. However, I've repeated the steps right here. Set equal to 0, coefficient of your squared term has to be a 1, move the constant over, take half of the middle term and then square it, that's a little symbol, and then bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. So we're going to follow these steps for these problems. So, set equals 0, it is. Now, truly, you should try to factor it. I should slide that in there, because if it's factorable, you should. Because factoring is a million times easier than completing a square, I'm telling you that. But now, we got to make sure the coefficient of the squared term is 1, and it is. Move the constant over. Now, some people may say, why set it equal to 0 if you're just going to move the constant over? That's a great question. Because factoring is easy. So you set it equals 0, take a peek, you say, hey, are there 2 factors of negative 3 that add up to negative 6? No. So now we got to complete the square. So make sure the coefficient of the squared term is a 1, and it is. Move the constant. What's the constant? It's the number. So we're going to add 3, move it over. We just did. So, move the constant over and create spaces. Keyword spaces. 2. So we're going to add 3. Watch. This is the big moment. Space equals 3 plus space. Remember what we're dealing with, an equation. So if we do something to one side, we got to do it to the other. What does this say? Take half. Take half of what? The middle term. What do you mean middle? this right here. Take half of that. What's half of negative 6? Negative 3. What does this say to do? Symbolically, square it. So negative 3 squared is 9. But if we put a 9 here, we got to keep it balanced by putting a 9 there. Now we're going to clean this up a little bit. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 12. Now the reason you did that is because you are one step away from having one of these problems. And what I mean is, this is a perfect square trinomial. That's what completing the square is. It's actually creating a perfect square trinomial so that you can bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. In other words, we're going to factor this. I know I didn't put this in step 4, but factor. We'll make that step 4.5 because that's already step 4. There you go. So we're going to factor this. This is going to be x minus 3, x minus 3. This is not wrong, but I'm going to rewrite it as x minus 3 squared equals 12. Now you should see the benefit of completing the square. Because now we're ready. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. X minus 3 equals plus or minus. Now I've done the square root of 12 so many times, it's 2 square root of 3. Add 3, add 3. X equals 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 3. Done. Now the first time you see it, it might be complex. And then once you start seeing it a couple times, it's not so bad. Set equal to 0. All right. We're going to go 2p, 2p. P squared plus 2p plus 51 equals 0. Take a second. Say, hey, is this factorable? Are there two factors of 51 that add up to 2? No. 17 times 3 is 51, believe it or not, but no, it doesn't add up to 2. So, is our coefficient of the squared term a 1? Yes. Now I said x squared, but I put in quotations. Obviously this is p, but it doesn't matter. So now we're going to move the constant over. So subtract 51 from both sides. Create spaces. And now take half of this middle term, which is 1. Square it and put the answer right there, 1. But if I put a plus 1 there, I got to put a plus 1 there. What is this? It's a perfect square trinomial. What are two factors of 1 that add up to 2? 1 and 1. So this is just going to turn into p plus 1. And I could write times p plus 1. But after you've done a bunch of these, you know where you're going. So you write it like this, and then you get negative 50. Now we're ready for bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. So we get p plus 1 equals, take the I out, then break down this square root if possible, which it is, 25 and 2. This is 5i square root of 2. I'm going to subtract 1, subtract 1. So I get p equals negative 1 plus or minus 5i square root of 2. Strange looking answers, but there it is. As you can see, I'm running out of space. So maybe I'll do the work for this one down here. I'm going to save this one and just see what kind of space I can save here. So I'm going to do number 7 first because there's an extra twist here. And it says set equal to 0. So we're like, okay, just follow the rules. 5x squared minus 30x plus 100 equals 0. This actually worked out good. I'm glad I did this one before I did example 6. I think this one's going to make a little bit more sense initially. So it says make sure the coefficient of your squared term is a 1. You're like, uh-oh, first time that hasn't happened, but notice how nice this is. This is divisible by 5, so is this, so is this. And we don't really care about the 0, so what we're going to do is take advantage of math. We know we can divide an equation by anything we want at any time, so we're going to do it. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 20 equals 0. And now we take a minute, we ask ourselves, is this factorable? Are there two factors of positive 20 that add up to negative 6? And again, nope. So we're going to move the constant over, create spaces. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern. Happens every time. Take half of this middle number and don't forget the negative. It's negative 3. Square it, 9. Yes, this will always be positive, because if you square a negative, you get a positive. If you square a positive, you get a positive. But then I got to stay consistent. This is a perfect square trinomial, which means it's going to factor into something squared. What would that something be? X minus 3 squared equals negative 11. And now we're ready. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. X minus 3 equals plus or minus, watch this, take the I out, add 3 to both sides. X is 3 plus or minus I square root of 11. Done. I hope this is starting to look somewhat redundant. Example 8 just looks yucky from the start. Remember, we want a coefficient of a 1. We've got a whole bunch of fractions. We're going to clean this thing up right away by multiplying everything by a 4. See, this 4 would cancel with this 4. So boom, boom. We'd be left with y squared. 2 goes into 4 twice. So it'd be, but there's a minus. Forgot about the minus. So 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 times y is 2y. That's a negative 2y. And 4 times 1 is 4. Pause. Is this factorable? No. Is this a 1? Yes. So we're ready to bump that constant over. Create spaces. Take half of the middle coefficient, which is negative 1. Square it is a 1 and a 1. This is a perfect square trinomial. So it's going to be a binomial squared. What is this going to factor into? Y minus 1 times y minus 1 equals negative 3. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. Y minus 1 equals plus or minus I square root of 3. Add 1, y equals 1 plus or minus I square root of 3. Done. Now, we got this rascal up here, which I hope there's enough space. We'll see. All right, this one's unique too. Let's follow our steps. Set it equal to 0. Check. Coefficient of the squared terms of 1. Uh-oh. Remember down here we divided everything by 5 and everything turned out all nice and neat? We're like, sweet. Well, this one, we got to divide everything by 2. And you may think, well, that doesn't go into everything. You're right. But this must happen. It's the only way you're going to get a perfect square trinomial. So we got to divide everything by 2. So this would give us y squared. This would give us 2y. This, unfortunately, would stay at 3/2. Okay, for you guys that just instinctively want to turn these into decimals, decimals are rarely used in algebra, so we just stick with this improper fraction. So, look, try to factor it. There's just no way. You're not going to find 2 factors of 3/2 that add up to 2. No. Got the coefficients of 1. Move the constant over. The constant is this fraction. So we're going to subtract 3/2. Subtract 3/2. I'm going to move this down here. Y squared plus 2y plus space equals negative 3/2 plus space. Take half of this, which is 1. Square it. 1, 1. This is a perfect square trinomial that factors into y plus 1 squared. 1 is the same thing as 2/2. So negative 3/2 plus 2/2 is negative 1/2. And this is a complex one. Bada boom, bada bang, do the right thing. Y plus 1 equals, now watch, I'm going to take the I out, plus or minus I, square root, and I'm going to break this up into the square root of 1, square root of 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and get that square root out of there. And I'm going to subtract 1 at the same time. So I'm doing a lot, but I'm running out of time for this video. I've only got like 30 seconds. So negative 1 plus or minus, those roots fly off. This is just the square root of 2. So I get negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 2 all over 2. Now don't put this over 2. It's just this ends up being all over 2. And that's it.